Amane is a gullible dimwit loser who squandered his trust fund on feet pic subscriptions. However, his life changes when he helps out the wet girl next door and she's willing to bend in all directions to pay him back. It all begins on a gloomy rainy day when Amane heads home and suddenly spots China sitting alone in the rain. He tries to ignore her but notices her crying and changes his mind. So he covers her with his umbrella and asks if she is auditioning for a role in a sad movie. China pitifully says she wasn't and asks if he needs something. In response, Amane says someone might call an asylum hotline if she doesn't go home soon. China responds, telling him to stay out of her problems and worry more about his. After this, Amane tells her not to catch a cold and gives her his umbrella. The next day at school, Amane sneezes repeatedly, making Itsuki, his friend, wonder if he's trying to set a world record. Amane then says he got drenched in the rain because he gave his umbrella to some pretty chick. Surprised at this, Itsuki asks who the lucky girl is, and Amane says she's a lost girl he met on his way home. While Amane thinks of how sad China looks, she suddenly shows up in class and gets girls and boys swooning. Just then, Amane figured the entire school called her Angel because she was humble despite being Marie Curie with a touch of Serena Williams. This makes him realize why every wanker in school acts like she's the last cookie in the jar. However, he considers himself from a different plane. When Amane's train of thought gets interrupted by another bout of sneezing, Itsuki asks if he plans to die single while flaunting his chats with his girlfriend. Later, when Amane goes home hoping he survives the day, he is surprised to find his school's Beyonce waiting at his door with his umbrella. He then tells her he wasn't expecting her to return it. However, Sheena says she doesn't keep what's not hers. She asks why he looks like and Amane tells her to stay out of his business. While they talk, Amane almost falls, but Sheena supports him and says she has to repay his help. Shortly after, Amane opens his junkyard of an apartment, which makes Sheena regret her decision. However, she says she'll step out for a bit and be back later. Amane then asks why she wants to come back, and Sheena responds, saying she plans to help him sleep well. After this, Sheena runs to her room, while Amane thinks no one would ever believe she actually lives next door to him. Later that night, Amane wakes up to Sheena staring at him. When he sits up, she says he's been out for over 2 hours. After this, she asked if he was hungry since she had cooked some rice porridge for him. While Amane wonders if there is something she isn't good at, she asks if he thinks she poisoned him, so Amane responds, saying he doesn't. After this, she hands him a thermometer, asking him to check his temperature. Amane suddenly raises his shirt and Sheena looks away, saying his pecs could open her floodgates. Just then, Amane realized why she was everyone's spec. Shortly after, she returns with the food and asks about how hot he is. Amane tells her and says he would be fine with some drugs and good sleep. However, Sheena helps him understand why biology class is so necessary. After this, she serves the food and gives it to him. However, Amane stares at it like a riddle he can't solve. Shera then asked if he wanted to be spoon-fed. In response, Amane says he's surprised that she cooks. Sheena then tells him it's a requirement to live alone. After this, she tells him to learn to clean his room. After tasting the food, Amane complimented her cooking, but Sheena brushed it off, saying anyone with Wi-Fi and YouTube could cook rice porridge. Afterward, Amane asks if their boyfriend's problems made her sit in the rain the other day. In response, Sheena says she's single and plans to stay that way. Amane then says he thought she might have a few since she was so popular. Pissed off, Sheena tells him she's not a hoe like he thinks. Amane reads her mood and then apologizes. After this, Sheena reveals she sat in the rain to clear her head and apologizes for causing his cold. Afterward, Amane tells her not to feel guilty about his cold and adds that, unlike other guys, he has no intention of taking advantage of the situation. He then says it's a relief to know that angels get upset too. In response, Sheena tells him to never call her that. The next day at school, Amane's friend is glad to see him better and tells him to get his shit together. While they walk, Amane stops and watches Sheena teach her friends maths, so Itsuki tells him she is way out of his league. Later that day, while Amane sips a drink outside his apartment, Shera tells him he shouldn't be having that for dinner. She then tells him to wait while she goes in. After a while, she returns to give him some food. Amane thanks her and says not everyone is lucky enough to eat an angel's homemade food. However, Sheena tells him again to stop calling her that. Shortly after this, while Amane eats, he thinks about what she said. The next morning, Amane returned Sheena's plate, and she thanked him for washing it. However, she hands him another plate of food, but Amane refuses. Sheena insists, saying she makes more food than she can eat alone. Amane then takes the food and thanks her. After this, he says someone else might misinterpret her gestures for love. She asks if Amane thinks she likes him. In response, Amane says he doesn't think so, and she slammed the door in his face. Subsequently, Amane's nutrition improved thanks to Sheena, who kept up the charity work. One day at school, Amane asks Itsuki if he looks unhealthy and is surprised when Itsuki says he's looking a lot better than he did before. Later that day, while shopping, Amane bumps into Sheena and tells her not to think he's following her. In response, Sheena tells him to get over himself. While they talked, Amane discovered Sheena wasn't the baller he thought she was. After shopping, Amane decides to help Sheena with her load, and she says he doesn't have to. However, Amane says she'll be more charming if she allows him to help. After this, he leaves the store saying they won't look good walking together. Afterward, Sheena goes to Amane's apartment to collect the food container from the previous day, but meets him trying to clean up his messy junkyard. When Amane complained of being clueless about how to go about it, Sheena offered to help. While he thought about it, she gave him a pep talk on home management. A few moments later, Sheena says they're leaving no stone unturned. So the duo began the cleaning. Suddenly, Sheena slips while cleaning, but Amane gives her a soft landing. She then tells him that could have been avoided if he had taken his hygiene seriously. Amane apologizes, so they continue. After cleaning, Amane decides to order pizza since they are both burned out. Shortly after, Sheena reveals she has never had pizza as her parents are rich enough to employ a chef. While she ate, she told Amane to take his eyes off her for a bit. However, he told her not to flatter herself. Afterward, Amane says he prefers this version of her compared to the clenched version he sees at school. In response, Sheena says she's always been like that since childhood. Amane then says she can always relax when she's with him. In response, she says she can't since his eyes were doing things to her. When Sheena stands to leave, Amane asks why she bothers to cook for him, and she insists it is the satisfaction of showing off her skills, but Amane is unconvinced. Sometime later, Amane finds Shira sitting alone and asks why she is sitting alone. She responds and says she wasn't doing anything. However, Amane doesn't believe her, so he observes that her clothes are covered in fur. Then he asks if she's been cuddling a cat or dog. Sheena responds saying she only climbed the tree to rescue a cat. Hearing this, Amane takes a look at her foot and tells her to stay still. Afterward, he returns with some med kit and tells her to take off her tights while Shira gives him the "are you crazy" look. He then tells her it's not what she thinks and offers her his jacket. When she takes the jacket, Shira asks how he could tell what was wrong with her, and he proves he's the reincarnated Sherlock Holmes. After this, he turns around while Shira takes off the tights. Shortly after, Amane plays doctor and asks if she feels any better. He then tells her not as cultured as she thinks, but Sheena reveals she's not as shallow-minded as him. While he wrapped up her ankle, Sheena says he's not entirely good for nothing, and Amane agrees. Afterward, he gives her his sweatpants and a hoodie to keep her anonymous. Afterward, while he carries her home, Sheena apologizes for bothering him, but he says it's his duty as a gentleman. When they get home, Sheena thanks him again before he goes into his apartment. Just then, Sheena realizes she's still wearing his trousers. The next day, Amane goes to the pitch wearing shorts, so Itsuki asks Amane if he is trying to get the ladies dripping. Amane responds by saying he forgot his sweats and tells him to shut his pie hole. Itsuki cheered on Katawaki, the school's Prince Charming, while Amane thinks he doesn't give a rat's ass about students who don't talk to him. However, he says the school is quite creative when it comes to giving nicknames like Angel and Prince. Just then, he spots Sheena sitting across the pitch and their eyes locked. Later at home, when Sheena returns his clothes with a plate of food to thank him, Amane asks how she's doing. Sheena responds saying she's better but staying off exercises. Amana then tells her that her angelic smile lit a fire at the pitch, and she reminded him that she hated the Nick. After this, she asks why the dimwits freaked out that much when she smiled, so Amane took the chance to compliment her pretty face and ask if she was interested in the Katawaki. Sheena responds saying if looks were all it took, then Amane would already be in love with her. Amane is surprised to hear that, so she tells him she's aware that everyone wants a piece of her. After this, Amane checks the food and asks if she made it. Sheena responds saying she did, and asks him to microwave before eating. Amane then says he likes the dish freshly made. When she asks if he is trying to get into her space, he says he won't push his luck. Then they agree to split the bills and make the dish at Amane's place. Amane asks if she will feel safe in the same room with him, and she tells him that she'll crumble his eggs if he makes any move. After this, she points out that Amane wasn't a threat since she isn't his type anyway. Subsequently, the duo decides that Amane pays extra in addition to the cost of the cooking. When she arrives, Sheena discovers Amane's kitchen is as good as new. She then tells him to get busy while she cooks since he's pretty much useless. While she cooks, Amane stares at her, thinking he's found a wife. Just then, Sheena asks him if he's trying to see through her apron. Then Amane tells her to quit fibbing. Shortly after, the food was served and Amane thanked her before devouring a bowl full. While Sheena watches, Amane eats and compliments her cooking. When they finish, Amane does the dishes and asks why Sheena cooks for a guy she doesn't like. In response, she says she enjoys cooking and also feels joy in helping the less privileged. After this, Sheena says she could stop if it bothers him, and Amane tells her it doesn't. The next day, after a test, Itsuki approaches Amane complaining that the test was too hard, and Amane responds by saying that's because he's been busy holding hands while ignoring his textbooks. The dumb says he's sure Amane would do worse when he finds his better half. While they talk, Chi, Itsuki's girlfriend, joins them and they get all mushy. Creeped out, Amane asks if they were trying to make him jealous. Then Itsuki says Amane would do the same if he were in his shoes. Surprised, she asks if he has a girlfriend and says she'd like to be friends with her. Amane responds saying he'd be damned if his imaginary girlfriend agrees to that. She then asks what an imaginary girlfriend was, and Amane responds saying he finally understands why Itsuki likes her. Later that day, in Amane's apartment, Shira thanked him for doing the dishes. When he asks to know what she is doing, Shira says she is grading herself. Amane then asks what her score was, and she says it must be perfect since she's studied ahead and covered the next year's curriculum. Afterward, she asks if Amane likes studying too, and he responds saying he studies to stay out of trouble with his family. Just then, Sheena says she studies hard because she has to. She then packs her bags and announces she's leaving but drops her ID by mistake. Amane checks out her ID and quickly returns it to her. After she thanks him, Amane realizes her birthday is in 4 days. Later, while she cooked, he asked if she wanted anything. After thinking about it, she says she wanted a sharpening stone. Surprised, Amane asks if she is a butcher in disguise. In response, Sheena says he's lucky she's not like regular girls. The next day, Amane asks Itsuki for birthday present ideas. After trying a few suggestions, he says they would require some expert advice. Shortly after, Chi was all up Amane's asking questions about the mystery girl. Amane refuses to tell her who the girl is and asks her to channel her expert instincts and give him ideas. After lots of suggestions, she eventually suggests that he get a stuffed animal. In response, Amane says he'd be embarrassed taking a teddy bear to the counter at the store. At this, Chi calls him a coward, so he begs her to go to the store with him. She then agrees to go with him on the condition that he treats her to something sweet. Surprised to hear that, Amane agrees. Sometime later, Shihoko, Amane's mother, shows up at his door unexpectedly. She says he looks better than she remembers, and Amane thanks her half-heartedly and asks her to beat it. In response, she tells him to pretend to be happy to see her since she traveled miles just to see him. Amane thanks her again and insists that she leave. Shihoko tries to enter his apartment, but Amane stands in the way. Just then, she reminds him of whose pockets pay the rent. At this, Amane folds and lets his Shihoko in. Shihoko walks in like a dirty cop looking for dope, while Amane reminds her what visiting courtesy means. In response, Shihoko says nothing feels better than catching him unawares. While Shihoko compliments his glowing skin, Amane recalls how he had hidden Sheena in his bedroom when Shihoko arrived. After this, Shihoko points out that he's been cooking for two. In his defense, Amane says he had a friend over. Just then, Shihoko says she'd like to check his bedroom, but Amane stands in her way and says he has a right to some privacy. After this, Shihoko asks if he's got bones in his closet, and Amane tells her to mind her business. However, Shihoko goes into the room and is shocked to find Sheena sleeping. While Amane stares at Sheena like she's a stranger, his mom says he's got great taste in girls. In response, Amane says it's not what she thinks. Shihoko then says they must like each other since they visit each other's bedrooms. Just then, Amane says he and Shina are friends with no strings attached. While he tries to convince Shihoko, Shina awakes, so Amane asks her to back up his claims. Before she could speak, Shihoko asked her for her name and also introduced herself. Afterward, Shihoko pressures Shina into calling Amane by his first name. When Amane complained, she told him to do the same. While Amane drowned in embarrassment, Shina explained that they only ate together because Amane was a fast foodie. Shihoko suddenly grabs Shina and tells her to keep it up. When Shina tries to explain further, Amane tells her to give up since his mother goes deaf once excited. Shortly after, Shihoko asks if they live together, and Amane responds, saying Shina lives next door. At this, Shihoko says destiny was at work since he's lucky to find a pretty girl who could satisfy his every need. She then says Amane is a gentleman even though he could be annoying. After this, Shihoko reveals that Amane is a virgin boy and tells Shina that she might need to take the reins. Annoyed, Amane asks Shihoko to take her leave, so she apologizes for ruining their evening. After she leaves, Amane apologizes for Shihoko's excesses and worries that she might bother Shina. In response, Shina says he's lucky to have a mother who cares enough to pry into his affairs. While Amane wonders what she means, Shina reveals that no one calls her by her first name, not even her parents. After this, they both decided to address each other by their first names only when they were alone together. When she tries to return the key he gave her when his mother crashed their little party, Amane decides to leave it with her. Shina then tells him to reconsider his decision. However, Amane says he's giving her the key because he trusts her. Surprised, Shina tells Amane to prepare for dramatic appearances and disappearances in his apartment. The next day at school, the test scores were posted and Shina tops the list as usual. While checking the list, Amane hears some girls say Shina is built differently, but he thinks she just works harder than everyone else. Later at Amane's apartment, Shina finds a cake in the fridge and asks Amane if he likes cakes. In response, he says he got it to celebrate her success in the tests. Surprised, Shina says it's not a big deal since she tops the class all the time. Amane then says she's too modest for her good, while Shira stares at the cake weirdly. Afterward, after Shina serves the cake, Amane watches Shina eat the cake, so she assumes he wants some. She then offers him a piece of the cake, but Amane says he wasn't staring at her for the cake. In response, Shira tells him he has to eat the cake since he bought it. After this, Amane eats the cake and says it's delicious. He then takes her fork and feeds her some too. So, Amane asks her how it feels to be spoon-fed, and she says it sucks. In response, Amane says randomly offering people food like that could make people assume things. Sometime later, Amane goes shopping to make some food by himself. However, he can't stop thinking about Shina's cooking. On getting home, he meets Shina and explains his plans to her. However, since she has as much faith in him as your baby mama in your pull-out game, she offers to help. Shortly after, Amane explains what masterpiece he's about to create and Shina clears him to begin. After a while of dueling with the utensils, Amane serves the chaos he calls food and asks Shina to check it out. On tasting the food, Shina says he must have seasoned the food with hopes and dreams and nothing else. At this, Amane apologizes, and Shina gives him a sample of the same dish which she made. While Amane eats, Shina commends his desire to cook and asks if she'll still be needed around when Amane finally learns to cook. In response, Amane says he never wants to learn but offers to always help her out in the kitchen. The next day, Itsuki and Chi suggest that they celebrate Christmas Eve at Amane's house. Amane refused, making Chi ask if his imaginary girlfriend was coming around. Amane responds saying he remains the god of singlehood. At this, Chi asks if he got a stuffed animal for just a friend, and Amane says he got it for his neighbor, who gives him food and helps him sleep at night. After the weird combo pesters him for a while, Amane agrees and says they have to be gone before nightfall. Later, Amane asks Shina if she has plans with her girlfriends for Christmas. She responds by saying all her girlfriends have boyfriends, and she's turned down every boy who offered to take her out. While Amane pitied the shot-down boys, Shina asked what his plan was, and he told her Itsuki and Chi were coming over. When she says she'll be in her room, Amane asks if she wouldn't be lonely, and she says she's used to it. After this, Amane asks if she would like to spend Christmas with him, and she agrees on the condition that he'll teach her to play video games. On Christmas Eve, while they had fun, Itsuki pointed out that Amane's room looks better than the he remembers. She then added that the new room had a feminine touch to it, freaking Amane out. Amane then tells them to stop snuggling with each other in his presence, but Itsuki tells him to get a baby and shut up. Just then, Chi narrated how Sheena emasculated every boy who asked her out for Christmas because she had plans with someone. Chi suddenly notices snow falling outside, and they go out to check it. On getting to the balcony, they were surprised to find Sheena also out to welcome the snow. After this, they all met in Amane's apartment, and Sheena apologized to Amane for ruining their cover. In response, Amane tells her not to beat herself up since it wasn't her fault. To answer their questions, Sheena explained their living situation and claimed she was trying to repay Amane by saving him from self-destructing. After this, Itsuki points out that Amane doesn't have feelings for Sheena and asks if they are planning on getting married. They both respond saying it's more likely for a fish to win a foot race. Just then, Itsuki asks if the teddy bear is for Sheena, too, and Amane tells him to shut up. Afterward, Amane tells Itsuki and Chi the importance of keeping their loose mouths shut. Chi then states that no one would believe an A-rated chick like Sheena would simp for a backbencher like him. Facing Sheena, Chi gets to see her up close for the first time and fawns over her perfect looks. However, Amane stops her from locking lips with Sheena. Chi apologizes afterward and says she was just starstruck. Afterwards, extends a hand of friendship to Sheena and introduces herself and Itsuki. While Itsuki blushes, Amane tells him to cut the crap if he doesn't want to be thrown out. Facing Sheena, Itsuki says he's Amane's best friend and is always ready to whoop his back into shape if he ever misbehaves. In response, Sheena says apart from Amane's whack homekeeping skills, he's a pretty cool guy. Chi then says she likes cooking too, but she doesn't seem to work well with recipes. After they leave, Amane apologizes, saying Chi gets out of hand easily, and advises her to reset her with a slap whenever that happens. Afterward, they had a chat about the weather and shared some jokes. Then Sheena leaves to get some stew she's made, while Amane flashes back to the events of the evening. Shortly after, while they ate, Sheena watched Amane and said he looked happy when eating. In response, Amane says her cooking could make a ghost haunt the kitchen for leftovers. While Amane does the dishes, he asks how she learned to cook, and Sheena responds by saying someone taught her the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Afterward, Amane compliments her cooking again, making Sheena blush. Sheena then says she doesn't think she is as good as he says she is. Then Amane tells her not to be too hard on herself. He then asks if she has plans for the next day. Sheena then reminds him of their video game date. The next day, while Sheena learned to play the video game, Amane poked her with his magnum while trying to show her some moves. He suddenly apologizes afterward, and Sheena says it's her fault. She then says she's just surprised and it's okay since they are not strangers. After a while, Sheena got a hang of the game and was having fun while Amane enjoyed the view. Sheena suddenly falls on his nutsacks, leaving him confused on whether to smile or cry. She then apologizes, saying she didn't do it on purpose. At this, Amane smiled and she asked if he was making fun of her. He then says it felt really good to watch her fall on his berries, and she hits him feeling embarrassed. Afterward, Sheena wins a game and Amane cheers her on. He then presents her with a gift for winning her first game. Sheena says he can pipe down with the gifting. However, Amane tells her to pretend it's from Big Old Santa. When she took the gift and opened it, she was shocked to find a key case. Amane then explained he thought she might need it since she had his keys now. Then she says he was more stylish than she thought. After this, she reveals Shihoko sent her a picture of Amane in junior school, surprising him. Amane then realized they must have exchanged contacts the day Shihoko visited. While Amane downplays his looks, Sheena moves his bangs aside, checking him out and telling him how handsome he is. Amane blushes and does the same to her. Shortly after, Sheena announces she got a gift for him. A few moments later, he was rocking a new muffler. Just then, Amane's Riz stash suddenly overflowed, so he buttered Sheena up with lines banging enough to charm the pants off a mannequin. Sheena suddenly shuts him up to catch her breath. He asks if he is doing it right, but she walks out red as ketchup. Amane follows her and says she'll catch a cold. However, Sheena responds saying he's the feeble one. Shortly after, Amane thanks her for bringing much color to his life, and she thanks him in return. The next day, Amane notices Sheena's face is red and asks if she is okay. Shina says she's fine. However, Amane insists that she checks her temperature. After checking, she announces she's fine, but Amane checks for himself and discovers she's not. Just then, Amane says it's time for her to get some rest, so he picks her up and takes her to her apartment. At the door, Shina says boys aren't allowed in her apartment. Amane responds saying she could sleep in his place if she wants. After they argue for a bit, Shina decides to sleep at Amane's apartment. Shortly after, eating and taking her meds, she thanks Amane, and he responds, saying she's done the same for him. He asks why she pushes herself so hard and apologizes for making her do that to herself. In response, she says he's never burdened her in any way. Amane then makes to leave, but Shina holds him back and says goodnight. At this, Amane holds her hands while she blushes and says she's not a kid. However, Amane says he's just trying to help her sleep. The next morning, Amane checks on her and asks if she is feeling okay. Shina responds saying she still needs a little touch. Just then, Amane offers to make her rice porridge. After she eats, Amane sits with her to keep her company. Then she revealed no one had taken care of her like that. She then apologizes for being a burden to Amane. In response, Amane says he couldn't bear seeing her in pain and offers to help her sleep like he did the night before. While he held her hands, he thought of how that could have played out differently. Later, Amane and Shina spend the new year together and express their wishes to continue their relationship in the new year. Afterward, when they both decide to check their messages, Amane gets texts from Itsuki and Shihoko asking if he is having a great time with Shina. Just then, he got a text from his dad asking if they could visit him some days later. Amane replies saying it's okay. He then tried to notify Shina, but she was sound asleep on his shoulder. Just then, he realizes she must have been overworked for making so much food for the new year. When he tries to wake her, she falls into his arms and he takes a whiff of her sweet scent. After this, he considers different ways to handle the situation and decides it is best to put her in his bed. He then rubs her cheeks and bids her goodnight. The next morning, he finds her still sleeping and realizes she looks cute even when sleeping. While he touches her face, Shina awakes and is shocked to see him. Amane calms her down and says she needs to thank him for not popping her cherry. In response, she asks if rubbing her cheeks makes his wood rise since it's been doing that a lot. She then revealed she was awake when he put her to bed and rubbed her cheek. After this, Amane tells her not to test him like that again since he's still a guy. He then asks if she's expecting him to make a move. Embarrassed, Shina covered her face. Sometime later, Amane's parents came to visit. He greets Shuto, his dad, and pretends Shihoko is a road sign. When she pointed this out, he said she doesn't respect him that much either. Just then, he spots a box and asks what it is for. Shihoko responds saying they brought some things along. Shihoko then goes in to greet Shina. Shuto soon joins them and introduces himself while thanking Shina for looking after Amane. In return, Shina says Amane has been quite helpful to her too. Shihoko then interjects saying Amane is a useless freeloader. However, Shina says he's been considerate. Shuto then says he's glad they get along and advises Amane to be good to Shina. Facing Shina, he tells her not to spare him when he misbehaves. After this, Shina served the guests some tea and they complimented her good manners. Then Shihoko says she's glad to see Amane getting along with a pretty girl. At this, Shuto tells Shihoko to stop bullying Amane and makes her blush. Shina then tells Amane she can see where he got his riz from. After this, Shihoko asks if Amane and Shina have visited a shrine. When they said they hadn't, Shihoko said she bought a kimono and would love to see Shina wear it. Shihoko then says they'd all be going, but Amane objects, saying it would be bad if they bumped into any scrutiny. Shihoko then says they just have to avoid that happening. Shortly after, Amane checks out his outfit while Shuto compliments his looks. Shuto then asks if Amane is happy living alone, and he says it's easier while flashing back to an incident. While they talk, Shina appears, all dolled up. While Amane stares, speechless, his mother reminds him he's still got a mouth. Reluctantly, Amane compliments Shina and Shihoko tells him he sucks. When they were alone, Amane told Shina how good she looked in the outfit while she blinked like a faulty doll. In response, Shina tells Amane he looks really good too and turns away, feeling embarrassed. When they arrived at the shrine, Shina pulled lots of stairs as they walked. Amane asks if Shina is okay, and she says she feels weird in her outfit. While they talk, Shina almost falls from being bumped by the crowd, but Amane supports her and decides to hold her hands all the way. Shortly after they went to pray at the temple, Amane asked Shina why she prayed for so long. Shina says she prayed for more peaceful days like the one they were having. However, Amane thinks it's impossible to have a peaceful day with Shihoko around. A few moments later, they had some bean soup, and Amane asked if he could have a taste of Shina's. When she acted weirdly, Amane said it was okay if she didn't want to share. However, Shina swapped the drinks and reminded him of how embarrassing it felt when they fed each other. At this, Amane apologizes and says he thought it was normal since he does it with Chi and Itsuki. Later that day, Amane apologizes for hijacking Shina's day. However, she tells him she had fun and got a taste of true happiness while flashing back to the events of the day. At this, Amane rubs her head and she asks if he is trying to ruin her hair. Amane then asks if she doesn't like it, so she tells him to notify her before doing so next time. Then she asks Amane if he goes around patting girls like that. In response, he says she's the only girl on his radar, making her blush. After this, she runs over to her apartment and calls Amane a dummy while peeking at him. The next day, when Amane's parents were leaving, they said they looked forward to having Amane bring Shina home. After this, Shudo tells Shina he hopes she continues her friendship with Amane. In response, she says she's lucky to be friends with him. Later, Amane tells Shina not to flatter him like that. She responds by saying she meant everything she says about him. She then tells him how much of a cool guy he is. After this, she leaves to make lunch. The next day at school, rumor spreads that Shina visited the shrine with a secret boyfriend no one knows but looked cool. While the girls wondered if the mystery guy was from their school, Amane and Itsuki listened. Itsuki then tries to make Amane feel better, but he wasn't having it. After that day, Amane and Shina talk about the flying rumors and Shina says it's good that no one knows it is him. After this, Amane asks if holding hands is the new criterion for a relationship. In response, she says it's best that they wait till the rumors clear up. Amane then says he couldn't imagine a low-lifer like him as her boyfriend. Pissed, Shina scolds him, angrily listing every one of his perks. At this, Amane decides to do the dishes while Shina covers her face with a pillow. Sometime later, Chi visits Amane and tells him she needs his advice since Valentine is approaching. However, Amane says any right-thinking student should be worried about exams, making Chi wonder if he was a centenarian in an underaged body. However, she took one look at Shina working in the kitchen, and this changed her mind. Afterward, she reveals she's planning to give Itsuki chocolates and wants it to be special. Amane then tells her that Shina would be best suited to help her out. Chi then says she thought he'd have better ideas as a boy. However, Amane says he's a full-fledged guy and not a boy. Chi then says, unlike him, full-fledged guys make moves when alone with girls, shocking both Amane and Shina. Amane then says he can't do that since they're not in a relationship. While they had tea, she announced that she was going to give Amane some chocolates too. She then asks about what kind he likes, and he responds by saying he doesn't like sweet stuff. Facing Shina, she asks if she plans to give anyone chocolates. Shina then says she plans to give to only the girls in class, since gifting any boy could land her in trouble. On Valentine's Day, while Katawaki got a mountain of gifts from the girls, the other boys stared, wondering if they should jump him or steal his kolan. However, Itsuki and Amane read the mood in the room and wonder how he isn't diabetic from eating so much chocolates. Unbothered, Amane says he's sure he'd never get any chocolate for Valentine's Day. Itsuki then tells him to prepare for a bumpy ride. Worried, Amane asks Itsuki what she put in the chocolates, and he lists some weird combinations of ingredients. While Amane wonders if Chi was trying to kill him, Itsuki asks if he thinks Shina would give him any. Amane responds saying he had no idea. Afterward, she presented the box of chocolates to Amane, and he thanked her. Chi then gives him a heads up on what to expect, and Itsuki wishes him well. When they leave, Amane gives Katawaki his shopping bag to haul his mountain load of gifts home and leaves the classroom. Later that day, Amane weeps while trying out Chi's chocolates, so Shina makes him a palate cleanser from chocolates and tells him the others might taste better. Afterward, when Amane tried out the drink and felt good, he then asked Shina if she used chocolate because it was Valentine's Day. After he thanks her, Shina starts acting weirdly and suddenly announces that she's going to her apartment, leaving Amane to wonder if he said something wrong. He went after her and found a pack of chocolates and a thank you letter. Afterward, he opened the gift and tried out the chocolates. The next day at school, Katawaki approaches Amane to thank him for the bag, while some girls wonder what the Prince Charming wants with the nobody, since Amane only talks to Itsuki. Shortly after, Itsuki asks Amane what that was all about, and he explains what happened. In response, Itsuki asks Amane why he carries a shopping bag around like his granny. Amane then says Shina was rubbing off on him. After this, Itsuki tells Amane it must feel good to have a domestic partner, and Amane retorts, saying they were not partners. Afterward, he asks Itsuki how his parents feel about Chi. Itsuki says his dad wasn't quite pleased when he was told about his intent to marry Chi. However, he plans to convince him. Amane wishes him good luck, and Itsuki wishes him the same. However, Amane says it's not happening. On getting home, Amane finds Shina in his apartment and thanks her for the chocolates. He then asks if she wants something in return, and Shina says she doesn't. However, Amane reminds her of all she does for him and says he needs to repay her in some way. After this, he decides he's going to think of something but tells her not to get her hopes up. In response, Shina says she treasures everything he gives her. Afterward, she asks Amane about his birthday. When he tells her, she gets annoyed that Amane's birthday was before Christmas and he didn't tell her, so she demands they celebrate his next one together. Amane then says that means they'll be together for a while, making Shina blush. Sometime later, Amane checked out a gift shop but couldn't figure out what to get. He then asks the attendant for a gift he could give a close friend who he's not in a relationship with. Afterwards, Amane meets Shina in his apartment looking cute as ever. However, Shina asks what the occasion was, and he says it's White Day. He decides to tone it down, but she says it's okay. Just then, he hands her a gift and asks if she could check it. When she opens it, she finds a flower bracelet and 2 tickets to make a request from Amane. She then uses one of her tickets by asking Amane to put the bracelet on her. After he does this, she thanks him, but he gets lost in her eyes. Later, when Amane tells Itsuki how his White Day went, Itsuki congratulates him on finally moving like a man. However, Amane says it's not what he thinks. Afterward, Itsuki tells Amane that he's changed a lot since he met Shina, and all that's left is for him to shoot his shots with her. On getting home, Amane was welcomed by Shina in her apron, looking like a full housewife. When she asks why he was late, he reveals he had some fries with Itsuki. She asked if he was full yet, and he said he couldn't miss her food for anything. Shina then says he'll get fat, but Amane takes her hands and shows her how skinny she is. He suddenly apologizes since she hates being touched by boys. However, Shina says she's made an exception for him. After this, he points out that Shina wasn't wearing her bracelet, and she says she's saving it for days when she won't be busy with chores. Amane then says he's happy she likes it and leaves to go change. When he got to the room, Amane worried Shina was starting to act like a young wife. The next day, Itsuki arrives at school with a bag of clothes. He tells Amane he's had a fight with his dad over Chi and plans to stay at his place for a while. Amane then asks Itsuki how long he intends to stay. Itsuki says he'll be staying for a few days, so Amane pulls out his phone to notify Shina first. Later that day, when Shina welcomes Itsuki, he apologizes for barging into their love nest, but Amane shuts him up with a stump. Shina then tells the boys to play nice while she leaves to make dinner. After she leaves, Itsuki teases Amane, saying they've got a wedding to plan. Shortly after, the food was served and Itsuki says Amane was a lucky bastard to eat good food all the time. While Amane agrees with him, Shina thanks him for his compliments. Later that night, Itsuki tells Amane that he's been hit by Cupid, but he doesn't know it. He then explains that despite being the school's antisocial weirdo, Shina was able to see who Amane really was. After this, Itsuki says he's happy to see them get along and tells Amane to be honest with himself. The next day, while on a call with Chi, she complains of missing out on Shina's cooking, and Amane says it's not his decision to make. At this, Chi decides to ask Shina herself. A few moments later, Chi shows up at the door with Shina, announcing she's spending the spring break at Shina's. After this, she invites herself in and gets all cozy with Itsuki, while Shina tells Amane not to make it a big deal. Afterward, Amane joins Shina in the kitchen and offers to help, but she teases him about being jealous. Just then, he asked what they were making for lunch. After Shina tells him, he tells her she's the best cook, making Shina blush. A few moments later, while they ate, Chi's taste buds took her to heaven as she complimented Sheena's cooking. Chi then says she'd like to learn to cook like Sheena. However, Amane says she'd be better at everything if she was less dramatic like Sheena. In response, Chi says she can never be as clenched as Sheena. Amane then calls her out for being rude, and Chi explains that in school, Sheena is in a class of her own. However, Chi tries to get Sheena to loosen up, saying Amane could spoil her if she does since he's always sweet to people who are nice to him. In response, Sheena says it's never going to happen. Later that night, Chi sends a cute picture of Sheena and her teddy bear to Amane over text and asks Itsuki to send a picture of Amane too. The next day, after Itsuki and Chi leave, Amane tells Sheena about the picture and points out that she's been taking good care of the teddy bear. Sheena then says too much about how she cuddles the teddy bear to sleep. Just then, she felt embarrassed and asked Amane to share something embarrassing about himself to make them even. When he refuses, Sheena threatens to ask Itsuki, making Amane wonder when they exchanged contacts. Later, Amane returns from the store and finds Sheena being scolded by Sayo, Sheena's mother, who says she will stop visiting when Sheena graduates. After Sayo leaves, Amane walks up to Sheena and asks who the woman is. She revealed Sayo is her mother who has always hated her. She then turns to leave while telling Amane not to worry about her. However, Amane stops her and asks her to stay with him. Shortly after, while they held hands, Sheena decided to bore him with her story. So she reveals her parents were married for family interests and she was a product of a torn condom. After this, Sheena says her parents had no intention of raising her since they barely came home and left her to be raised by a housekeeper. To get her parents' attention, she worked hard to be the best at everything. However, none of it was acknowledged. Sheena then says her parents were waiting for her to finish college so they could divorce and be strangers. After this, she reveals Amane found her in the rain because of her family drama. Amane then wrapped her up in his arms and said he understood why she didn't like to let people in. He then gives her a shoulder to cry on. Afterward, she thanks Amane and leans against his chest. She then talks about how nobody truly wants her. In response, Amane lets it slip that he likes her, surprising her. He then goes further to tell her all that drives him crazy about her and tells her to give herself some credit. After realizing how sweet he sounds, Amane tries to take back his words while Sheena tears up. At this, Sheena tells him to look at her more and hold her. At this, Amane grabs her hand, but she throws herself at him and asks him to hold her close. A few moments later, Sheena feels embarrassed for being so emotional while Amane tries to talk her out of it. He then tells her that she's got people who think she's special. Sheena then asks if he thinks she is special too. In response, Amane says she is since they spend a lot of time together. Afterward, Sheena suggests that they take a walk. While they walked, they talked about school and changing classes. Shortly after, Sheena hugs Amane and thanks him while saying some sweet words. Just then, Amane discovered they were under a cherry blossom. However, Sheena says she never liked spring or cherry blossoms because she was always alone at school entrance ceremonies and graduations. Amane then assures her that he's got her back. When the school resumes, the students' classes are reshuffled, and Amane falls in the same class as his friends and Sheena. While Itsuki freaks out about it, Amane pretends to be indifferent about it. However, he and Sheena give each other side-eye stares. Afterward, Katawaki walks up to them and greets Amane, who then flashes back to an incident. He then apologizes for getting carried away and responds to Katawaki's greetings. Later at home, Sheena noticed Amane looked weird and asked if he was okay. In response, he says it's something else and tells her not to bother about it. Sheena then says she'd like to touch his hair, surprising Amane. He then tells her to touch it as she wants. Just then, she offers him her lap, saying it would make it easier to stroke his hair. Amane refuses her offer, making Sheena ask if her lap isn't hot enough for him. A few moments later, while Sheena stroked his hair, Amane asked her what she would do if he tried to check out her assets. Sheena says she'd liquefy his berries with her foot. After this, she says she doesn't think Amane was ballsy enough to do something like that. After a while of gently stroking in silence, Sheena tells Amane that he's not romantic while revealing that she's been taking tutorials on how to make a man feel good from Chi. Amane tells her not to get used to it, and Sheena tells him to just relax and enjoy her services. Shortly after, Sheena asks Amane about how he felt about the new class reshuffling, and he says he didn't see it coming. Then they decided to keep a safe distance from each other to prevent rumors from flying around. China then pinches his cheek for saying it without any emotion and asks if they could act normally at home. In response, Amane says they could and fall asleep. An hour later he wakes up, asking about how long he's been out. China responds and says he looks cute when he sleeps. Amane then tells her to stop acting all sweet with him. However, Sheena tells him to shut up since he's seen every shade of her. Before he says another word, Sheena pinches his cheek and says his cheek looks better now. After this, she tells him that he can talk to her if he's going through a hard time. Afterward, Amane says she's being pushy, and Shayna responds by saying nobody else gets to see that part of her and tells him to enjoy premium access. The next day, Amane goes to the arcade to play games and goes home packing a bag. Shayna welcomes him and asks Amane about the bag. Amane tells her it's a surprise for later. Afterward, he presents many stuffed animals to Sheena, who then thanks him. After this, she gets all mushy with the stuffed animals while Amane watches, smiling. She then tells him to stop thinking of her as a kid, and Amane says he only thinks she's cute. After this, he rubbed her hair to keep her calm, and it worked. Just then, Sheena says she would like to repay Amane somehow, and she offers to give him anything he wants, shocking Amane. However, he asked for pudding with lots of eggs. The pissed Sheena then decides to make it the next day. The next day, Sheena gets the eggs and serves Amane his pudding. When he finished, Amane told Sheena how happy he was to have her around. Sheena responds, telling him she's flattered. However, Amane offers to compliment her all day, but she refuses. She suddenly picks up the plate to wash it, but Amane stops her and tells her to rest while he washes. The next day at school, Kadawaki approaches Amane and Itsuki to ask if they would like to eat together. Itsuki then asks why Kadawaki was bent on kissing their ass. In response, Kadawaki says he just wants to be friends. Amane asks if he is sure since there is nothing in it for him. Kadawaki then asks why anyone would make friends for profit's sake. While they talk, Amane spots China staring at him. Later at home, Amane asks China if something is up with her and apologizes in advance if he did something wrong. China then says her foul mood is not his fault. After a while of pestering her, Sheena reveals she's jealous that Kadawaki and his other friends could talk to him in school while she struggles to hold herself back from doing so. Amane then says it would look weird if the school's Beyonce hung out with a loser like him. In response, Sheena tells Amane to feel confident or she would go around telling people how amazing he is. They then decided to get close in public, one step at a time. The next day, the class was divided into cooking groups and Sheena asked to be in the same group as Amane. Afterward, Amane blames Chi for putting such ideas in Sheena's head. While Amane and Itsuki performed a creepy bromance, Sheena says she is envious of how close they are. Chi asks Sheena if she wants something similar with her, but Amane says she's overreaching and suggests that they start working on their meal plans. After this, Chi pokes fun at Amane, saying he couldn't cook. Amane then bragged about his omelette, but Sheena let the air out of his tires. Annoyed, Amane says they're starting to make him look like a loser. However, Sheena makes him feel better. In the cooking classroom while they cooked, Chi says she thought Amane wouldn't know what to do with a spatula, and he responds by saying he's not as bad a cook as they think. While Amane takes instructions from Sheena, Chi says they look adorable but gets cut off by Sheena, who tells her to focus. After cooking, Sheena and Amane leave to get some things from the fridge. On their way, some Gordon Ramsay wannabe spilled hot food which almost burned Sheena. But Amane rescues her while the others watch in amazement. After this, Amane talks some sense into the culprit while holding Sheena. Shortly after, when they return to their cooking station, Chi says Amane looked so cool, which was unlike him. He explains he had to grab Sheena or she'd be cooked too. Sheena then thanks him for saving her. Later at home, Sheena hopes Amane won't be bothered by other students and is upset at how long it will take before she and Amane can talk in public. Amane tries to calm her nerves, but she tells him it's not to get used to it. Sometime later, Amane tells Sheena that a week's vacation is coming up, but she doesn't seem excited about it. So he asks why, and she says she has no idea what to do with the time. Amane then asks about her cooking lessons with Chi, and Sheena says that's the only plan she's got. She then asks if Amane would be free. In response, he asks if she's got something in mind. Just then, she pulls out her other ticket, and asks Amane to spend a day shopping and hanging out with her during the Golden Week. Amane responds, saying he's happy to go out with her. However, she says he'll have to do whatever she asks that day. Amane then asks what she'd like him to do, and Shayna says she'd like him to carry her bags. After this, he asks where they were going, and she says she's yet to decide since she wants to go somewhere they could both have fun. Just then, Amane suggests that they go to a cat cafe and says it would be less embarrassing if they go together. Shayna agrees and suggests that they go shopping and visit the arcade together since it's her first time. Later, cheese cooking lessons with Shayna began and she was yapping as usual. Amane tells her to behave since they are in his house. Shayna then apologizes for using his kitchen. In response, he tells Shayna to be wary of Chee's antics, referring to the Valentine's Day gift. In her defense, Cheese says it was a prank. However, Amane would rather walk a rope than trust her. Shayna begins her lecture while Amane slowly dozes off. After a while, he wakes up to Shayna rubbing his thighs. When he greets her, Shayna tells him he's been leaning on her shoulder and he apologizes. However, Shayna tells him it's not a big deal. Chi, who enjoys watching the scene, then asks about when they started using each other's first names. Amane then says he is sure Chi must have been up to some mischief. However, Shayna confirmed that she's been a good girl. Afterward, the food was served and Amane asked Shayna if it was safe to eat the food. Pissed, she tells Amane to stop suspecting her, so he thanks her for the food. After this, Amane takes a bite and says the food is good. Shortly after, she thanks Shayna for the lessons and takes her leave. After this, Shayna apologizes to Amane for playing with his cheeks and hair while he sleeps. When Amane asks if it felt good, she responds by saying it did. Just then, Amane rubs her cheeks while she blushes. Shortly after, she asks Amane about his preferences when it comes to dressing. He responded saying a prim and proper look would suit her person. Shayna then decides to dress to kill for their hangout the next day, but Amane begs her to go easy on him. The next day, Amane was surprised to see Shayna's new look. Shayna then says she packed her hair to keep it from the cats and tells him to laugh all he wants. However, Amane compliments her and they leave. At the cat cafe, Shayna tries to play with a cat but gets worked up when it leaves. Amane then tells her the cat only came to say hello. Afterward, while they had tea, Shayna adored the way it was served. However, after being persuaded, she drinks the tea and Amane takes a picture of her. Later, while they pet cats, Shayna asks Amane why he likes cats, and he reveals it's because they remind him of her. In response, Shayna says he's wrong since she doesn't just cozy up to anyone and accuses Amane of treating her like a kitty. Shortly after, they go to the mall while holding hands. Just then they stop to check a dress and Amane asked if she would like to try it on. Shayna asks if he likes the dress and he responds saying he thinks it would look good on her. While Shayna went to try on the dress, some girls approached Amane and asked if he wanted to go have some fun. However, he tells them he's with someone. Just then, Shayna grabs his arm and drags him away, surprising Amane. At the arcane, Amane teaches Shayna how to get the teddy bear. Afterward, he commended her, and she presented the stuffed animal to him. Amane then says she deserves to keep it since she worked for it. In response, Shayna says she worked hard to get it for him. Then Amane took the teddy bear and promised to keep it in his room. Amane tries to pat her hair but suddenly gets interrupted by Katawaki, who says he had no idea Shayna had a boyfriend. Shayna then says Amane isn't her boyfriend. After they explained their situation to him, Katawaki complimented Amane on his looks. Shayna then tells Katawaki to keep their secret, and he says he wouldn't like to ruin his friendship with Amane. Later, Amane apologizes to Shayna and she says it's not his fault that they were found out. Afterward, they talk about Katawaki and how cool he is. Shayna then says Amane has that in common with Katawaki, however, Amane disagrees. Shayna then asks Amane why he thinks so low of himself, but gets no response. Shayna then says it's okay if he doesn't want to talk about it, and says she'll praise him all day if she has to. The next day, while hanging out with Itsuki and Katawaki, Amane's relationship with Shayna came under scrutiny. While he insists they are just friends, his friends aren't convinced. When he got home, he found Shayna hiding her phone from him. He asks her what it was, and she reluctantly reveals she got some of his childhood pictures from Shihoko. He then demands to see some of the pictures, but Shayna refuses to show him. so they wrestle for the phone and Amane falls on her. Shaina closed her eyes expecting a kiss but got a pinch on her cheek instead. While Amane checks out the picture, Shira looks disappointed. Sometime later, Sheena asks Amane about his plans for Mother's Day. He responds by saying he could have helped if he was home, but plans to send a bouquet instead. Just then Sheena says she's surprised that his parents let his dumb live alone when he can't even handle himself. He flashes back to an incident and tells Sheena that he didn't want to stay home for some reason. After this, he rubs her hair and tells her not to worry about him. He then said he needed to avoid some guys, so he left home. She then calls him a liar and says it's okay if he doesn't want to talk about it. Amane then says it's not a fun story and narrates how he had 3 friends who exploited him for money and talked behind his back that he was of no other use to them. Since then, he lost his trust in everyone else and chose to move to a new town for a fresh start. Sheena then says she would have beaten up the boys if she could, however, Amane tells her to save her strength for her troubles. Sheena then tells him never to compare their troubles and says she wants to support him like he did for her. After this, she asks Amane to depend on her emotionally and says she'd like to pamper him. In response, Amane says she's trying to make him helpless. Then Sheena said she'd always known him to be helpless if she knew he was also strong and reliable. She offers to spoil him and pulls him closer while telling him to relax. Amane says she's too pushy and she says she's only trying to pay him back for what he's done, so they hug for a while. After this, Amane says he doesn't want to be dependent on her since he's the guy. Just then, Sheena says she understands, but Amane disagrees. However, Sheena says he's a clueless dummy who can't read between the lines. She then stands to leave, but Amane hugs her from behind. Sheena asks Amane why he's poking her from behind, and he responds saying it's not any different from the front. Afterward, frees herself and goes to cook. Later, while he goes on a run, Amane decides to work on himself to feel more confident around Sheena. The next day at school, some girls confronted Sheena about a rumor that she went to the mall with a guy. She confirmed it and said the guy was special to her, so they went on a date, surprising everyone in the class. Later at home, Sheena tells Amane how much she treasures their time together and tries to boost his confidence, saying she trusts him more than anyone else. At this, Amane says her response in school could mislead the other. Then Sheena says that was her plan since she doesn't care what they think. After this, she says being popular sucks because people watch and judge her every move. However, she says she feels safe in Amane's apartment. Later, Amane tells Sheena of his new hobby and she asks if there was a reason he was exercising. In response, Amane says he just wants to boost his macho. Amused, Sheena asks Amane if he would like to be spoiled, and she says she makes it sound like she would do anything he asks. Just then, Sheena says she could do anything within her abilities and would expect him to return the favor. As practice, Amane then asks her to make a request. Sheena then asks for a head pat, saying she likes it when he touches her. The next day, Amane has an X-rated dream featuring Sheena and soaks his PJ at school. She asks Amane why he looks like a throwback picture, and he lies saying he's tired from his morning run. Sheena suggests that he go home to rest, but Amane refuses and says he's fine. Later that day, Sheena thinks Amane is angry with her and asks him why he's been so cold to her. Amane responds saying he has a lot of personal stuff running through his mind. After pestering him, a man narrated his dream, and Sheena asked weird questions, claiming the answers might come in handy someday. However, Amane tells her not to worry about the answers. Afterward, they both confess they'd never been with anyone else. While Sheena feels excited about it, Amane feels embarrassed. Later, the school's exam schedule was released, so Amane asked Sheena if it was okay to study with his friends. She responds saying she could make some food and join them if they don't mind. Amane then suggests that she invite Chi. However, Sheena reveals she and Chi had planned to study before since she claimed her dad would kill her if she flunked the exams. Unimpressed, Amane says it's just an act to get her an invitation. After this, Sheena asks why Amane was so motivated for the exams, and he responds by saying he intends to boost his confidence. To increase his motivation, Sheena offers to do anything he asks her if he makes the top 10 on the results list. Amane then asks Sheena about what she'll do if he asks for something risky. In response, she says she'd be impressed by his balls and grant it anyway. He then requests that she clean his ear as his reward, disappointing Sheena. When their guests arrive, Amane welcomes them while Katawaki says Sheena looks like a wife. Afterward, they studied together and ate some food. After they left, Sheena served Amane some tea, and he said she was so caring. In return, she also reveals she loves taking care of him. While Amane's brain ran in a loop, Sheena pulled him closer and played with his lips. After the exams, Amane holds the 6th position and Sheena congratulates him. Referring to her blank check offer, Sheena asks Amane to reward himself for his hard work. Amane then says she deserves a reward more since she topped the list. In response, Sheena says she's used to being on top. Later at home, Amane offers to reward Sheena and asks if she has any requests. After thinking, Sheena then asks him to chop some cucumber and rub it with salt afterward. Disappointed, he asks if she wants anything else, and Sheena says he can shove his reward up her ass. After this, she says only she could grant her one true wish. When she asks Amane if he knows what it is, he says he doesn't, and Sheena decides it's okay that way. Afterward, she asks Amane to come get his lame reward, but he stands looking like he's been summoned to the chopping block. Just then, he says he's changed his mind. However, Sheena insists that he must enjoy the reward for his hard work. After staring at her lap and dreading the inevitable explosion in his pants, Amane finally lays his head on her lap while she cleans his ear. While Amane enjoys the feeling, Sheena then asks if it's true that men love to be tickled in their ears. Amane responds saying it does feel good. However, Sheena says he's got a man-sized body and a boy-sized brain. After she cleaned his ears, Sheena told him to turn over, and when he did, he saw her thighs and his brain hit the pause button. While Sheena enjoys fiddling with his brains, Amane melts like ice cream in a sauna. Afterward, she compliments his hair texture. In response, Amane says he likes her hair too and apologizes for always touching it without permission. Sheena then says his touch makes her clam weep. Hearing this, Amane wonders how much longer he can keep himself from busting. After a while, Amane wakes up on Sheena's lap and finds her sleeping. Thinking he's familiar with her gimmick, Amane tries to wake her, but she's out as a light. He then rubs her face and screams her name. She then wakes but is still drowsy, so Amane takes her to her apartment. After putting her to bed, Sheena asks Amane to sleep in her bed with her, but he lets a teddy bear take his place and covers her up. The next day, when she visits Amane, he returns her key and Sheena asks if he notices any pictures in her room. Amane says he didn't and narrates what happened the night before. Sheena freaks out, feeling embarrassed, and says she would never do such a thing with him. Amane then says the fact that they're friends doesn't mean he could clap his cheeks at will. In response, Sheena says it's not much different from sleeping on her lap. Amane then tells her not to wake the beast in him, and she says he's the human equivalent of a sloth after a heavy lunch. The next morning, Sheena shows up at Amane's door and says she wants him to check out her summer outfit. When she asks if anything looks odd, Amane checks her out and says her bare legs look good. After this, Amane says she shouldn't flaunt her legs like that since that would drive the fanboys crazy. She then asks if he's really got anything between his legs and refers to the day she sprained her ankle. In response, Amane says that was an emergency. Then she apologizes for teasing him and says she came with her stockings. Amane then asks if she's trying to get him by flaunting her bare legs. Sheena responds, saying it's not like he cared about such things. After this, she grabs Amane and asks if her legs make his wood rise. He responds by telling her to put on her stockings. Sheena then says she's glad he got to see her summer outfit first. Later at school, Sheena got all the attention because of her summer outfit while Amane sulked. Later, Chi and Itsuki go home together while Katawaki asks Amane if he wants to hang out. On their way out, they met Sheena, who then says she's got some work assigned to her. At this, Amane cancels his hangout with Katawaki, and they both decide to help her out. Afterward, she thanked the boys for their help. Just then, Amane heard some girls gossip about Sheena. Later at home, Amane reveals he is upset about the gossip. However, Sheena says it's not a big deal, and she'd be surprised if they don't gossip about her. She then reveals she's not liked by everybody, however most people pretend to like her because of public opinion. In response, Amane says he wouldn't be surprised since the girls think she'll steal Katawaki, their crush. After this, Sheena says Katawaki isn't her type since he isn't a private person like Amane. Amane says he prefers Sheena's personality in private, embarrassing her. However, Sheena says she's happy that he knows the real her. Afterward, Sheena says she'll be herself more in public. However, Amane is worried about other guys liking her and says he's not sure how he feels about it. Sheena then says it is cute that he is possessive of her. After this, she rained more compliments on him, making him feel embarrassed. After this conversation, Amane suddenly shuts her up with his hand and threatens to do it without the hand if she keeps teasing him. However, when he lets her go, Sheena drags him close and kisses him. After this, she runs away, leaving him stunned. The next day at school, Chi and Sheena discussed their plans for the sports day. While they talked, Amane entered the classroom and greeted his friends. However, Sheena couldn't meet his gaze, so he ignored her. Later, at the cafeteria, Itsuki and Kadawaki ask Amane if he fought with Sheena. In response, he says they had some issues and now they're maintaining social distancing. Itsuki then tells Amane to stop screwing around and shoot his shots. After this, Kadawaki says Amane was probably waiting to be sure he wouldn't get rejected. Amane then says things would have been easier if he had Brad Pitt's looks and feels miserable for being unsure about how she felt for him. Kadawaki then tells him to stop the pity party. In response, Amane says he's taking it at his pace and doesn't need to be rushed. Afterward, his friends subtly revealed they were planning something for him. Later at home, while Amane broods, Sheena walks in and apologizes for leaving before dinner the previous day. In response, Amane says it's not a big deal. Sheena then sits beside him, maintaining a safe distance. Amane then asks Sheena why she kissed him. In her defense, she says she got carried away and wanted to get back at him. Later, while they prepare for sports day, Chi freaks out because she and Itsuki are placed on different teams while Amane tries to figure out what sports to play. Afterward, while Sheena cooks, Amane asks her what sports she picked. When she tells him, he reveals they are playing similar sports. When Sheena asks why he's being lazy, he says it's because he's not athletic. Then she asks if he hates sports. In response, Amane says he only hates being forced to do it. Sheena then says it's a shame since she won't see him at his best. After this, Amane tells her she might be surprised, and she urges him to give his best. Afterward, he feeds her some ice cream and remembers they agreed not to do that anymore, so he hands over the ice cream and goes to make coffee. On the sports day, while Amane and Kadawaki talked about Chi, she ran the relay race and won. When she returns, her friends congratulate her, and Amane prepares for his scavenger race. Chi announces the start of the race, and Sheena asks Amane to come with her since he matches what she was looking for. Amane responds saying she also matches what he was looking for, so they both ran to the finish line and won despite being on different teams. At the end of the race, it is then revealed that Amane was supposed to find someone beautiful, while Mahiru was supposed to find someone special. After this, the schoolboys got furious and interrogated Amane for being chosen by the school angel. In response, Amane says he can't answer them all at once. After this, he explains that he gets along with Sheena because they are neighbors. However, he says they're not dating. This infuriates the boys, who then claim he doesn't care about their idol. Afterwards, Amane says he doesn't care about their angel and is only interested in Sheena. Just then, Sheena walks and tells the boys to let him off the hook. A boy then asks if she truly likes Amane. In response, she asks if he's got a problem with that. The boy then asks Sheena why she chose to like Amane of all people since he's a nincompoop. After this, she asks the boy why he thinks Amane is dull, and he responds by saying he dresses like he picks his outfit in the dark. She then says that good looks and a working brain are rarely found in the same person. After this, she tells the boys to keep their mouths off her choice of friends and tells them why Amane is amazing. After this, the boys took their leave, and she asked Amane if he wanted to eat with her. Later, Amane thinks about finding the right words to express how he feels to Sheena. Shortly after, Sheena walks in and says she knows he has a lot to say, however, she apologizes for putting him on the spot with the schoolboys. After this, she asks if Amane is offended, and he says he isn't. Amane then apologizes for ignoring her feelings. In response, Sheena says she's guilty of that, too, and apologizes. Amane then pulls her closer and confesses he never thought he could fall for anyone, but she proved him wrong. After this, he reveals she was quite bossy and cold when they met, but he got hooked after a while. In response, Sheena says she held back too for a while. Amane then promises to be a better man and states his ambition to make her happy. After this, he asks her to be his girlfriend, and she happily accepts. If you made it to the end of this video, confuse the fake fans by commenting Katawaki was a legend. And if you like anime recaps like this, then watch this video right here.